I'll go ahead and say it right now. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a pretty good video game. It is graphically gorgeous. While your typical sandbox games are set in densely developed urban areas, Valhalla recreates the mystical beauty of the natural world, from the snowy riverbanks of Norway to the green groves of England. You can see splintered rays of light shining through an entire autumn palette of leaves. Watch rabbits chase each other through the glens. Or go fishing in a crystal pond that mirrors the sunset. There is a plethora of breathtaking views atop roofs, ruins, and mountains, enabling you to see for miles in every direction. Valhalla is certainly easy on the eyes. This game also boasts more mechanical depth and technical polish than I have found in the franchise's previous entries. A two-handed combat system and a diverse array of weapons provides a wide variety of playstyles. You can carry the traditional sword and shield, swing a giant war axe, use a dagger and flail combo, or you can just bash your enemies with two shields at the same time. Each combination of weapons will drastically change the way you fight. My personal favorite was dual-wielding hammers and smashing Saxons to a bloody pulp between them. Glitches were few and rarely game-breaking. I only had to revert to a previous save twice when my character got stuck on a piece of level geometry and couldn't move. I didn't lose any progress, though. In addition, Valhalla weaves an epic tale of Viking conquest with a large cast of colorful characters set in a time when England was still the New World. Eivor is a likable and interesting protagonist with a great sense of humor and plenty of surprisingly poetic things to say about the places she visits and the people she meets. Although she is at her most eloquent when describing battle. And when she's not beheading Saxons, Eivor can engage the locals in flighting, a form of competitive wordplay that is a ridiculous amount of fun. But I'm not here to talk about any of that. Those are the components we expect to be well crafted in a good video game. Pretty graphics, solid gameplay, and an enthralling story. While Assassin's Creed Valhalla has all of those things, they are not what makes this game stand out amongst its peers and predecessors. Valhalla's most impressive innovations are practically invisible, unless you go looking for them. What I found was a game radically devoted to a flexible user experience, resulting in one of the most accessible pieces of digital entertainment ever produced by a major studio. Lots of open-ended RPGs tout their dedication to player choice, even if the only choice is whether to go silent and stealthy or guns blazing. But almost none have the same level of control offered by Valhalla. Thanks to its robust menus and some clever design, players can turn this entry of Assassin's Creed into any game they want it to be. You can literally choose your own adventure. A lot of this takes place under the hood, buried in the settings menu. Valhalla has a traditional easy, medium, hard difficulty setting, as well as the standard camera placement, aim assist, and sensitive content controls. But beyond that is a plethora of granular options you can tinker with to change almost any aspect of gameplay you can imagine. You can tweak how much damage Eivor takes and dishes out, how much of her health items will restore, how quickly her stamina replenishes, and even the length of time she has to parry an enemy attack. In addition to the difficulty slider, you can also set how enemy strength will scale in relation to the player. I chose to keep my foes at my level or higher, But if you're in the mood for a power fantasy, you can choose to never let enemies level up. Or, if you're looking for a challenge that'll kick your teeth in, set enemies to always be 60 levels above you. These menus are available at any time during the game, so if you get stuck on a frustrating boss fight, you can just turn Aver invincible long enough to beat his ass before turning it back off again. Or maybe you never turn it off again, and that's fine too. But this embarrassment of options doesn't stop at combat. There are different settings for stealth and exploration as well, each with their own independent difficulty sliders. You can change how observant the enemy is, how much time you have to escape once you are detected, and how long the enemy will search for you before giving up. Exploration options dictate how much information appears on the map. You can go with the classic cloud of icons, or make it so that you actually have to listen to quest givers and do some reading to figure out where to go next. You can also opt out of Ubisoft's trademark tower climbing mechanic to reveal the map. And best of all, you can completely banish all QuickTime events from the game. Gone. Fiddling with all of these settings can drastically alter how the game plays. You can completely trivialize combat, turning Valhalla into a visual novel with some light interactivity. Or you can transform it into a punishingly difficult Viking-flavored Dark Souls, where the slightest scratch from any enemy will kill you. Like many players, I found my fun zone somewhere in between, but I was able to customize it to my personal taste. I enjoyed the combat more than sneaking around, so my enemies were idiots during stealth, barely able to see past their own nose, but were quite formidable once the fighting started, able to use adaptive tactics that kept me on my toes. It's worth mentioning that Valhalla is not the first game to do this, although it has the most options that I've seen in a AAA title. Some indie games, like the beloved Celeste, allow you to customize many aspects of the experience, so that any player has a chance to reach the ending. Guardians of the Galaxy offers a comparable variety of options, but they are mostly there to alleviate the tedium of actually playing the game. Yet, no matter what you change, Celeste will still be a platformer. And Guardians of the Galaxy will still be a great animated movie, trapped in the shell of a mediocre video game. But whatever your preference or skill level, you can fine-tune Valhalla into the game you want to play. That's because this game's flexibility is more than just a screen full of options. It's also supported by the world and quest design. Valhalla is not simply another Ubisoft map game. There is a massive world dotted with tons of activities, but this game offers them up at a much more manageable ratio. The map isn't completely buried under icons waiting to be cleared, except in a few of the more densely populated city areas. You can actually wander around and stumble across things you didn't know were there, like a troupe of bards who bear a striking resemblance to EDM superstars The Prodigy, playing a version of one of their songs on lutes while a self-proclaimed bishop denounces their devil music for corrupting good Christians. While this wealth of pursuits may be headache-inducing for the die-hard completionists, it's better for every other person that may play the game. Not only is there a wide variety of things to do, but there are numerous instances of each one. This abundance allows you to completely ignore the activities that don't interest you, or that are too difficult, with absolutely no penalty. Don't like the Animus puzzles? Well, you only have to do one. The main story missions don't require you to do anything other than take forts or assassinate targets. The two most compelling aspects of the entire Assassin's Creed series. Even if you need to grind some side content to level up before your next big boss fight, you won't have to stoop to doing fetch quests or escort missions to get the XP you need. I would usually go hunt down one of the legendary beasts or an old Dranger looking for an honorable death. But you could also play the entire game as a weird period piece fishing simulator if you wanted. It would take a lot longer, but you could certainly do it. No matter what you like to do, you can get a full game's experience from Valhalla. So, why does this matter? What's the big deal? It all comes down to one word: accessibility. I don't mean special options for players with disabilities, although those are also very important for different reasons. I'm talking about making video games that can be enjoyed by any person that deigns to sit down with it. The skill barrier to entry is historically what has kept video games out of discussions of great art, or at least siloed in their own conversations. A book can be enjoyed by anyone that knows how to read. A song requires only that you listen, while paintings, photos, and films need just your eyes and attention. Critical discussions of these works is facilitated by the assumption of a shared experience. For example, you and I may disagree about the relative faults and merits of The Matrix, but we both acknowledge the text, or the events of the film. Whatever our interpretation might be, we both saw the scene where Neo dodges bullets, and it was awesome. We didn't see a scene where Neo kills a guy with a pencil, because that was a different character in a different movie. It was still awesome, though. But the point is, if we were discussing The Matrix, we would know we're talking about the same movie. But in a typical video game, the player must demonstrate a certain degree of mastery to see the entire work. Some players see 100% and more, while many others may see as little as the first level. You can't fail to watch a film or read a book. You can decide to quit before you read the end, but that's not really the same thing. Even if you truly want to see the entirety of a video game from start to finish, there's always a chance you won't be able to. Mega Man was my favorite series growing up, but I never saw the ending of a single game. At least, not until the age of YouTube. So, other than saying they were too difficult for me, I had nothing useful to contribute to the conversation about those games. Remember my previous example? Well, if we were discussing The Matrix, would you give my criticisms the same regard if you knew I never made it past Neo's interrogation scene? No, you wouldn't. While games in general have become significantly easier since I was a kid in the 1980s, the skill barrier remains. Other artistic mediums don't really have this restriction. A more seasoned observer may understand a particular work on more levels, but they do not get to see more than the average audience member. The Matrix doesn't kick you back to the start of the movie if you fail to understand a scene. Tolstoy's War and Peace may be a challenging book, but it has no bonus chapters for the hardcore reader. Just about anybody can view these works in their entirety and have a productive discussion about their craft. When we talk about good storytelling, films, books, comics, and television often get compared to each other. A good story is a good story, regardless of its medium. And video games deserve to be included in the larger narrative conversation, instead of being relegated to their own table. But for that to happen, an average person needs to be able to pick up a new game as easily as they could a new book or a movie. Video games aren't quite there yet. But with its many menu options and flexible quest design, Assassin's Creed Valhalla imagines a world where they could be. Perhaps that's why it's the first Assassin's Creed game I have ever finished, and thus, the first to be discussed on this channel. And if Ubisoft learns from this game, it might not be the last.